So this was in 2012. And I came up with an idea for a speech called Follow Your Bliss. And I came up with this idea because the previous summer I had been in East Lansing, Michigan, seeing a U2 concert. And during the concert, I had this overwhelming feeling of happiness and wishing everybody could feel exactly the way that I did in that moment. And so when we were selected as senior class sponsors, I marched into Carla's office, which is right across from mine. I said, Carla, I have our idea for a TED Talk. We're going to do Follow Your Bliss. And I'm going to talk about U2, and you're going to talk about yoga, because she had just gotten involved in yoga. And she said, that's a great idea, and you'll see that Carla's personality is very perky. Does anybody know Carla Jensen? She's insanely perky and happy like all the time. And so she was very excited about that, so we created our speech. And so it ended up being about a 10 to 12 minute speech. And after we gave it, it was really well received by the students, and we ended up giving it at a Sunday church service at the Methodist Church at Nebraska Wesleyan that summer, and also for our women's leadership group downtown. And one of our colleagues, Patty Hawk, said, you guys should turn that into a TED Talk. We thought, yeah, but whatever, you're crazy. We're not going to do a TED Talk with that. And then last year, we had watched one of the friends of Patty give a TED Talk, and Carla and I thought to ourselves, well, we can do that. I think we can handle that. And the theme for last year was think. And it's kind of a broad category. How do you think about something? Or in our case, how do you rethink something? And so we thought to ourselves, let's take our TED Talk on happiness and revise it. Let's update it for 2016 and talk about happiness, more about the science of happiness, our personal paths to happiness, and then encourage people in the audience to how to find their path to happiness. And so we applied. And it's a very kind of rigorous process to apply for a TED Talk. And after, I believe you'll be watching our TED Talk here in a bit, and then after, I'm going to take you to the website for TED this year and show you how to apply to do a TED Talk. And you have to basically describe what your speech is all about, how it applies to the theme, information about yourself. And Carla and I were fortunate, though, that we had a video recording of our speech at the baccalaureate ceremony 4 years ago. So we felt that maybe this gave us a little bit of an advantage as people knew what kind of speakers we would already be. So we sent that in, and then a month later, they got back to us and they said, well, now we need more information about your presentation, so we gave them more information. And then they had about, I believe, 75 to 80 people apply. And then they got back to us and said, hey, you've made the first cut. You made the top 50, so we're very happy about that. So now they wanted a 5-minute video of Carla and I talking about our presentation. So I grabbed some video equipment from school, went to Carla's home, she had just had surgery, and so we did our 5-minute shtick about why you should select us for a TED Talk and submitted it to the TED folks. And then a couple weeks later, they said, hey, you made it to the next round. Now we want to bring you in for a personal interview. And so they brought in about 15 or 16 people, I think, for a personal interview. And Carla and I thought, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to rock at this. This is not going to be any problem at all. They're going to love us. And so we walked in there on a Saturday morning, sat around the table with the TED folks, and we thought we were going to nail this. And we walked out thinking we blew it. We choked. They're not going to take us. They asked us some really hard questions. It just wasn't about, so Dave, Carla, tell us about yourselves. It was really about, what is the story that you're telling? Why is the story important? How does it relate to the theme? And Carla had been starting doing a lot of research on not only yoga, but also mindfulness and happiness research. And she wanted to start weaving that into the speech. And I remember one of the TED folks said, well, what if we did this speech after you came back from sabbatical? And I said, well, I'd rather you not do that. Don't think of it like that, because U2 is on tour right now. And I'm seeing them. And this is going to relate to what I'm talking about right now. So I think it'd be important for me to do this right now. And somehow, we walked out, we got in my car and drove back to her place, and we just thought, we just held our heads in shame. We just thought we did really, really terrible. But then a few weeks later, we got an email said that we were selected. One of, I believe, 13 people that were selected. And so we were obviously thrilled. So this was about the middle of the summer. And what they do is that you are then assigned speech coaches. And you go to their homes and you talk about your ideas and how you're going to write your speech. And we ended up giving them initially a 15-page speech. And we were loaded with all types. We'd done more research about happiness. Carla found a bunch of stuff on mindfulness research. And we'd gone from 15 pages, and through the process of working with these speech coaches, we cut it down to 8 pages, which is really hard to do, because everything that we thought was in there was essential. It was great. It was fantastic. And it got to the point where we were saying, well, sacrifices have to be made. We've got to cut this section. And I love this part, but we got it. How can we condense this? And so we got down to 8 pages, and we went back to our speech coach and said, okay, we think we have it now. And after we got done then, we went back and rewrote the whole thing again. And this time we were frustrated, but it was a good type of frustration, because we're communication professors. We do a lot of writing. We thought what we had was fantastic, but we weren't necessarily thinking about it through the lens of TED and what TED wants and how it would be successful from an audience perspective for TED. And so we kind of blew it up one last time. And we didn't rewrite the whole thing, but I'd say we wrote probably a good 30–40% of it. And we were done with it. We thought, okay, this is it. We finally got it. And they gave it a stamp of approval, and that was towards the end of the summer. And the event, the TED event last year was on October 1st. We had about a month to practice. And so Carl and I got together basically every day for about 30–45 minutes. We ran our speech out loud again and again and again. And we each have our kind of separate solo sections. We kind of tag team off each other. And there's a lot of timing involved with that. And so we practice on our own. I take my dog for a walk, run my speech in my head. Carla would work on it on her own. We get together, practice it again, continue tweaking some things as well. We even went out to Fire Spring, because Fire Spring hosted us, so thank you for doing that. And for 2 nights, half the people gave their speeches, and the other half gave their speeches, and we all gave feedback. And I was feeling great about our speech. And then one day I was at home practicing all by myself, and I forgot the introduction. I just forgot it. I didn't know how I was starting my speech. I thought, oh, this is just a blip, forget about this. And so the next day I started to practice my speech again, and I didn't know my introduction. And I was in full panic mode. I don't know if I was over-rehearsed, I was thinking about it too much, but I had this mental block. I could not figure out how to start my speech. This was after knowing it for weeks, and then not knowing it. And then something just happened where the floodgates opened up and it all came back to me. It was a really that never happened to me before, but I was truly scared about that. But the TED folks are amazing. They're absolutely amazing. They have so many great ideas in terms of content, in terms of delivery. And Carl and I had already been experienced speakers from the classroom and giving this presentation, other presentations. And so, but we're still open to getting better, because that's the whole thing, is that we wanted to get better. And people have asked me, what was the most stressful part for you, aside from me blanking out before the practice part of it? The biggest stressor for me were 2 things. First of all was, because I teach public speaking, and I was the former speech coach at Nebraska Wesleyan, that this was going on YouTube forever. And so if I blow it, there's no going back. I mean, it's permanently, archived as being Dave screwed up on YouTube. So that was my biggest fear. My second biggest fear was that when I get nervous, I eat a lot. It's this nervous energy. And so when they asked us at Fire Spring about what was your greatest fear, I said, having enough food the day of the speech, because I'm eating like every 15 minutes, so my nervous energy is burning everything off. So, but Carl and I were able to negotiate for the TED. Was anyone there on October 1st? A couple of people over there? Okay. So we were right before lunch, and we actually kind of negotiated that, because we thought a great way to kind of end the morning session before going to lunch is, let's talk about happiness. So we kind of propelled people out that way. And so it happened on UNL's campus at Kibble Recital Hall, and there were I think about 800 or 900 people there. There was a viewing party at Wesleyan because it was being live streamed, and so my mom watched it. My mom and sisters watched it in Minneapolis. So my family watched it in Wayne. We had students watching it in Washington, D.C. who were all doing their internships. It was everywhere. It was really, really cool. Everybody was watching. And they're also like live tweeting people there as well. And so when I got done with the speech, I went to Twitter and just bam, 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 all these comments about it, which is really cool. So, but that's kind of the whole setup for the speech itself. So I think we're going to watch it now. I don't watch it anymore, because I watched it first time I watched it, I thought, oh, hey, that was pretty good, Dave. Yeah, nice job. And then I watched it a second time, and I found all the flaws in it. So I can't watch it anymore. I haven't watched it in 6 months. So I'm going to step out of the room. I'm serious. I'm going to step out of the room. It's late August 1985, and I'm alone in my dorm room thinking I've just made a huge mistake.
It's late August 1990, and I've woken up for the 5th morning in a row to discover I cannot move my fingers or toes.
A few days earlier, I moved from Marquette, Michigan to Wayne, Nebraska to start college. I was nervous and homesick.
I was in the first years of my blissful marriage, ready to start a 2nd year of graduate school, and there I was, freezing up joint by joint like the Tin Man. I was in pain and afraid.
Then, fate took the form of my next-door neighbor, who told me that Sting, former lead singer of one of my favorite 80s bands, The Police, was playing in Omaha the very next week.
6 months later, with an eventual diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis, my beloved husband Travis was my constant caregiver, helping me bathe and dress. He even did a great job putting lipstick on me.
I go to the show, and 2 hours and 3 encores later, left exhausted, exhilarated, and thinking, maybe this living in Nebraska thing won't be so bad after all.
From those lipstick moments, I found comfort in asking for and receiving the care I needed.
Were you still in pain?
Yeah. Were you still nervous and homesick?
A little.
But were you happy?
Late August 2000, from the first day that Carla set foot on campus, I thought, oh my God, how can you be so happy? I mean, she comes to school at 7:30 a.m. and says,
"Good morning!"
And she really means it.
I never seriously thought about my happiness until the day my friend Dave bounced into my office like Tigger and said,
Carla Kay, I think I get you now. You follow your bliss. That's why you're so happy.
Thus, our conversation began. When we first embarked on our happiness exploration, we were overwhelmed by the volume of Googleable research on the subject. Of course, we found books and articles, but we also located the World Database of Happiness, which houses thousands of scholarly articles on, you guessed it, happiness.
We learned that the study of happiness isn't anything new, and that's not a pop culture fad. For example, in 2010, there was actually an interfaith summit on happiness, where the Dalai Lama said that we have a responsibility to make a happy life for ourselves and others.
The Dalai Lama's words inspired us to share the story of our conversations and investigation in the hopes that each of you will cultivate a culture of happiness.
Now, we need to talk about happiness, not to ignore the world's atrocities or personal challenges, but to discover ways to creatively solve problems and pave the way for compassion and resilience, even when life gets tough.
We've been really wrestling with how to best define happiness because there are so many definitions and because it is so personal. Some scholars don't even attempt to define it. But we can tell you what it is not. It is not hedonistic behavior at the expense of others.
Since each of us have unique personalities, believe it or not, I'm an introvert.
I'm an extrovert.
I want predictability.
I crave novelty.
Our happiness journeys are also unique. However, the happiness experience, whether yours or mine, are connected in these two ways. First, physiologically when we're happy, our brain patterns change for the better. And second, your happiness can impact that person's happiness.
So what happens to us physiologically when we're happy? You've heard of serotonin and dopamine. These, along with other feel-good chemicals, release in our brain, and it helps us feel more motivated and productive. It also enhances our overall physical well-being. Who wouldn't want that? We need to tap into this resource that Dave learned about his first year of college.
I didn't realize it at the time, but my Sting concert experience would be something of a watershed moment in my life. The first step in a 30-year journey to recapture the feeling I first experienced on that August night in 1985. the hair rising on the back of your neck, goosebump-inducing excitement of live music. Now, over the years, I've seen dozens and dozens of acts live, but my enthusiasm for them all pales in comparison to the Irish rock group U2. I first saw U2 in 1992 in Ames, Iowa, and I've referred to this show as the single most romantic moment of my life. And I didn't even have a date. It was so transformative that I promised myself I would go anywhere, anytime to see U2 again and again. Since then, I've traveled over 20,000 miles to see them a total of 13 times in 8 states, including this past summer when I did a coast-to-coast trek, seeing them in San Jose, Chicago, and Boston. So what makes a U2 concert so special? Imagine singing songs like With or Without You or Beautiful Day with 50,000 of your closest friends. Add to the mix a healthy dose of social consciousness and activism, and U2 becomes more than just a concert. It becomes a communal celebration where I felt joy, anger, hope, and even had tears in my eyes on a few occasions. After seeing U2, I'm usually on a concert high for several weeks and kind of won't shut up about it. The end result of this extreme enthusiasm is that I notice I'm smiling a little more productive, more creative, and that life is just better. Why wouldn't I want to experience that happiness again and again? And why wouldn't I want others to experience happiness in their own way?
Amazing experiences like Dave's concert adventures are one of the building blocks to happiness. And remember those feel-good chemicals? They make us feel more helpful, pleasant, and sociable.
This creates an upward spiral of happiness, also known as emotional contagion, where your positive attitude has the power to spread happiness to others.
Like a rash, a really happy rash.
So emotional contagion is the second way our happiness experiences are connected.
I first experienced the power of emotional contagion on the cusp of my 13th birthday. The same week I was getting used to my braces and headgear, I broke my foot. The following week, we picked up the back brace that would correct the scoliosis in my spine. And I would wear that brace all day, every day, for the next 3 years. It was made of hard, molded plastic from here to here. It had 2 metal rods up the back, 1 up the front, and it was all connected with a metal ring on top. Thick pads pushed me from either side, so as I grew, my spine would straighten. There I was, braces, broken foot, back brace, just in time for the first day of junior high. I remember feeling self-conscious. And it was a little bit of a challenge to get around on those crutches, but honestly, I remember feeling genuinely happy. I also remember feeling a little puzzled when adults would sometimes say things like, "Whoa, how can you be so happy, little girl? You got a lot going on there." Looking back on it and having done all of this happiness research, I wonder, was it nature or nurture? Either way, my sunny disposition was my family's doing. I think I was born pretty happy, but my parents' daily positivity was the greater influence. They shared the happiness habit I carry with me all my life. You might have noticed I have maybe some aches and pains, and like all of us, I have occasional situational struggles. But I can always find happiness. And as Dave said, why wouldn't I choose to be happy?
Some people think that happiness is over there.
Actually, it's right here. We are all called to be happy.
It is time for each of us to rethink and practice happy. And it is a practice, one that isn't always easy, but when we support each other in our efforts, the reward can be invaluable. So, in the spirit of creating a culture of happiness here today, we now present to you our top 3 ways to be happy. Be intentional, be grateful, and surround yourself with caring people. First, happiness is a choice. You have to get in the habit of doing it. When you try a new sport or musical instrument, it may seem a bit challenging at first, But we know that when we exercise a muscle, when we exercise our brain also gets stronger.
So when I talk to Dave about what makes me happy, or I think about what makes me happy, I create stronger, more resilient neural pathways. My brain defaults to happy when I practice happy.
According to the 2011 documentary Happy, 40% of our happiness comes from intentional activity. So doing things that you enjoy, like me going to concerts, Carla practicing yoga, whatever your thing is, can be a path to happiness.
And the key here is intentionality. Notice and savor pleasure and joy in that moment.
And as you're mindfully engaged in these intentional activities, here is happiness tip number 2. Offer thanks. People who are grateful, even for the tiniest things, like a parking spot that miraculously opens up,
Or a family meal.
or a walk on a fall day, are more alert, energetic, and have an increased satisfaction with life.
In addition to intentionality and gratitude, our third suggestion for happiness is to surround yourself with a caring community. The PBS documentary, This Emotional Life, shares that both extroverts
And introverts.
are happier when we are with caring others than when we're alone.
One way that Carla and I intentionally practice happy with our caring community at Nebraska Wesleyan is by teaching what we love. Carla has started our campus yoga club and regularly teaches a class on the liberal arts of yoga.
And Dave is fulfilling a dream this semester, teaching a class on the music and meaning of his favorite band, U2. Sharing our respective paths to happiness and talking with our students as they discover and develop their own happiness is invigorating and inspiring.
So we're asking, what will you do to mindfully create a culture of happiness with your family, friends, and coworkers? What steps can you take to spark an upward spiral of happiness? When we're done with this session, we want you to go to lunch and talk to others about how to cultivate happiness. It doesn't cost anything, but it can change your life and the life of those around you.
It's our collective responsibility to be happy and share happiness with other people. Make the practice of happiness a central part of your daily life. By doing so, you'll discover that when you embrace the things in life that give you life, you'll have more of yourself to give to others. There is no greater gift than that.
It sounds like a lot of you have ideas for a TED Talk. What I would encourage you to do is, if you want to follow through and have the experience that I did, is go just type in TedxLincoln. And it'll take you to this page. And on this page, it's what's your idea to bring us together? And so if you scroll down here, maybe, oh, there we go, okay. You click on the Apply to Speak, and this is all about building community and bringing people together. And so we had a meeting about a month ago. We're having a next meeting on Sunday. And this is all about, we live in a kind of very divisive world. Not just culturally, but certainly politically. Okay, there's a lot of different things that divide us. But what are the things that bring us together? Okay, helping refugees from Syria while you're in Greece. That's a great story. And so I want you to read the description very, very carefully and think about your story, maybe how it could fit into this particular theme. And then the process, you do, I mean, this is all just, it's draft stuff. Nothing has to be final, okay? And then they promote things through social media, tell us about your idea in a few paragraphs, what sparked your idea, you know, why is this the right time for your idea? So you're providing justification for why your topic is appropriate in this particular moment, okay? And then you want to know a little bit about you as well. And then you can say, a volunteer contacted me about it, okay? So I would really encourage you, if you don't want to apply, but if you know somebody has a great story to tell, because TED is all about telling great stories. And so if you have a great story to tell, encourage that individual to go to the TEDxLincoln website and apply. And I know they're looking for, like I said, last year 75 to 80 people applied. I think they're hoping to have even more. I'm not on that committee to select it, but I would help you then with the preparation of the speech and everything else to go with it and the practicing of it. And I believe this year's event is, I think, mid-September. I think it's when it is this year. So, and I really wish Carla was here too. As you can tell, she's a very bubbly, fun personality. And you can see how very different we are, but we also complement each other really well speaking. And so that's why I think one of the reasons that why this speech worked in this particular sense. So the more people that watch this speech, if you want to forward this, if you want to go to YouTube and forward this to other people, if you want to watch it again, great. And then watch it on your cell phones, watch everything else. Because the more people that watch it, the more hits that it gets. Then maybe the big TED organization will pick it up and put it on their site. And so that's kind of what they tell us. Always tell people to, and that's not just my speech, all the speeches last year were fantastic. So the speech that you liked, watch it, forward it to somebody, post it on your Facebook page, Twitter page, whatever. The more buzz we get going on this, the more it can go viral and the more opportunity people have to see the speech. And then maybe the big league TED will take it and put it on their site as well, which would be really, really cool.